I should be focused on who I might inspire. Opportunity everywhere, man. That's the other thing too. When it comes to like self-development and the mindset, man, it doesn't matter where you're from. Get the fuck out of where you're from. And that's what the barbershop told me. The barbershop taught me that when you surround yourself around hustlers and people who are money motivated and business motivated, I didn't have that.
Boom. Welcome, Mr. Sean So. Thank you for coming. Few things on the agenda today. We wanted to talk about what this podcast is all about. But first, let's jump right in. IDNTY, identity.
Okay.
For the viewers out there who don't really know what that is, what is identity? What does it mean to you? And what's your identity?
Well, I identify as No, we're not going to get into that. That's another episode. Identity. So Identity is a barbershop. My friend Annan started this wave, started this movement, started a company. And, without getting into the long story, it ended up expanding into what it is now. But it's more than a barbershop. That's answer number 2. It's inspiring people to be the best versions of themselves. It's an experience. And it's a culture, I believe. And I actually, despite what our mission statement is from a marketing standpoint, on some Vic Blends type shit, I very much am like him in the sense that I'm a teacher, I'm a preacher. I like to share the things that excite me and helped me navigate through, I guess, manhood. And so that's what identity is to me. Identity is how I identify. I mean, it's more of a long answer. I'm a barber, I'm a boxer, I'm a business owner. I haven't, and you know what? I have a shit ton of what would you call that? What's it called when you feel like a fraud?
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome as a business owner who's new to this game, because I didn't know what an Excel sheet was. I didn't know how to use spreadsheets. I didn't know how to communicate through apps like ClickUp, and I'm still learning. In fact, with transparency, it took me a long time to pick up the slack, right? So to answer your question, identity is a barbershop, first and foremost. Shout out to Annan and all the partners that are behind that team. That's a whole other story on its own too. Secondly, it's a movement, and that I resonate with very much so. And thirdly, how do I identify? Barber, boxer, business owner, man who is just inspired by life, somewhat of a philosopher, somewhat of a go-getter, a dreamer. That's how I identify.
I feel that, man.
How would you? Because I know you got questions prepared for me, but what about you? What is identity to you?
Shit.
And how do you identify?
IDNTY, identity, what it means to me is exactly like you said. I think you said the group of guys, the community that identity represents, and everything they stand for, to me, it bleeds like ambition, personal development, being your best self. And I fuck with that heavy, So that's what IDNTY means. And even when I think about Annan, the guy who started Identity, his come up, and then just understanding what his come up and what his journey was, it's so inspirational, right?
Bring that closer to you.
And I'm just trying to catch my train of thought again.
His come up inspirational.
Yeah, so I think that is the true embodiment of he's still on his journey, right? He's still going up. But that come up and that trajectory is, I think, what identity represents, which is becoming the best version of yourself. And whatever journey that is, whatever path that is, you recognize it. You have so many different clients on the chair. Each barber has a different client. There's so many different stories. And all of it, I think, when it comes down to it, you see it in the posters in the wall. It's all about, having the right frame of mind, and man, there's just so much it represents, and we'll get into it. But it's funny because I was listening to a podcast with Alex Hormozy.
Love him.
And he talked about specifically the etymology of the word identity. And the word identity is it's like the combination of two root words. The first one being identical, which means like the same pattern repeating itself, right?
All right.
And entity, which is the state of being.
Interesting.
So yeah.
I see. I love that. That's crazy because I'd never heard that from him. And
Yeah.
I love. I don't know if the word is called anagrammatic literature. Like I love. I don't think that's the word because an anagram is something different. But I love like the knowledge of language and where it originates. Right? There's like the whole
The etymology.
Is that what etymology?
Yeah.
Yes. I love the etymology of language. Right? Like rainbow. Right? There's like you could say that it's ra in bow. Right? Bow is bending. Right? Ra is like this the god of sun. Right? So it's like the sun bending, which creates light. And then there's Horus, horizon. Right? There's like all those the etymology of that stuff. Right? Because what I learned about identity, and I know this is kind of separate, but I learned this in Atomic Habits, and I learned this when I was researching. Researching. I think it was like relationship therapy, right? So a whole other topic as well. Breakups and stuff like that. But through relationship therapy, I learned about the concepts of cognitive behavioral therapy, right? This is popular among people who have a bunch of disorders, right? I don't even like to call them disorders. Even Alex Hormozy doesn't like I statements. He makes that clear. But what you learn about cognitive behavior is that identity comes from, like you said, repetitive behavior, and Atomic Habits talks about habits, is that there is your belief, there is your thoughts, which then have an effect on your feelings, which then result in the actions. So if you reverse that, it's your actions every single day that inspire your feelings, that have an effect on your feelings, which then have an effect on your thoughts, which then affect your beliefs.
Facts.
So I wasn't a boxer. I wasn't a barber at one point. You know, fast forward, like rewind 10 years ago, I wasn't a barber. I had never picked up a pair of clippers in my life. But all I had to do was pick up a pair of clippers every single day for a specific amount of time until I identified as a barber.
Right.
Right? And
that's it.
That I find that
And
crazy.
I love that you landed there because that's exactly where I was going. It's like the state of being times repetitive behavior.
Absolutely.
To put it simply, it's like you're not your words. Obviously, if I say I'm a barber, but I don't cut hair every day, I'm not a barber, right? So you're not your words. You're not even your actions.
Exactly.
I might cut hair one day. That doesn't make me a barber, right? But what you are is your daily habits.
Right.
And like
just like we're not podcasters. First episode.
Yeah.
But what maybe when we're on the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, and we've got this down packed, right? Then maybe we are.
Facts.
I think I should keep us here.
That's the etymology of the word identity, which I feel is so fitting for all of the topics that we want to dive into.
I love that he chose that word because it's more than just like a barbershop. I'm so glad that it's not, you know, okay, I don't know if I want to, like, shout out to other barbershops, but when you name something that is just like Chris's barbershop, Sean's barbershop, or something about cutting, you are limiting the reach of how many people can identify with your brand.
Facts.
Identity is such a general, everybody has an identity. And that's what makes it genius, right?
Yeah, like
So,
as a marketing background guy, the term identity, it's so malleable, it's so flexible, and you can take it to so many different directions, and it ultimately comes down to defining a purpose for it, which I think the visionary that Annan has defined, but it's constantly evolving. But I think that's the beauty of identity as a brand and name for this company that's growing. So what we're doing right now, as you touched on, like we're starting this podcast for the first time. There's many podcasts and voices out there. It seems like everybody and their brother is making a podcast these days. Why are we starting this one? Why are you starting this one? What's your why?
So I would say, first and foremost, it's crazy because when I was like I was saying in the previous question, guys like Vic Blends, people call me him all the time. I think maybe we have similarities in features, but I'm out here preaching all the time. You could ask Theo. I preach. I'm like
I can see it.
I'm Mr. Unsolicited Advice. It can be super annoying. I'm very self-aware of that. But why this podcast? Because I think now more than ever, as I start to apply a lot of the theories that I've learned, I think that there is, and talking to a lot of young individuals, young males out there who are just lost, right? Essentially, I think this podcast for me is just a bridge to connect young men or just young individuals who are interested in self-development. And honestly, a lot of people, they just have no idea what their problem is. They wouldn't even know how to identify the problem. They wouldn't even know how to solve that. And the reason why I want to be a voice and I want to bridge that misconnection is because I was also there, up until when I was like 28 years old. Even when I was 28 years old, through the business, I was struggling. I was not suffering, but I was struggling to grasp concepts of the business, struggling with communication, struggling with being a manager, struggling with girl problems, struggling with identity crises, purpose, a bunch of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Hands down. Yeah, man. Like being a client of yours and sitting on your chair and talking to you, I know everything that you're saying now is like hella genuine, because, one of the big reasons I go to a barber is not only to get my hair cut, but it's for that conversation that I share with you or whoever else barber, like whoever the barber might be. Mm-hmm. But I noticed that with you have that burning passion, and you could hear it in your voice, and when it comes to all the different topics that we talk about, you touched on it: relationship, personal development. Like, you can tell that you're very well read, and I agree. I think that knowledge like needs to be shared, because right. How much, like growing up, how much did you need somebody older than you kind of not necessarily telling you what to do, but to just kind of guide you and speak from experience?
I first and foremost, so my mom is what's it called? She was a single mother, 4 kids, grew up in like a blue collar town, Windsor, Ontario, and then moved to the surrounding towns out there. So it was a pretty sheltered town, but nonetheless, 4 kids, single mother. Father's not really around. He's visiting here and there. He's doing what he can do. He's got old Asian traditions. He's not very affectionate. There was a missing role model in my life. And my brother, his father abandoned him too. We have different fathers, and he didn't have any role models for him. So I didn't have a bigger brother to look up to or nothing. So I looked up to like people who had demanded certain respect, right? And growing up, I guess like not having such a strong role model in my life, I always asked myself, man, like it'd be like, or I always used to say, it'd be so dope if there was just a book out there that told you like all the secrets to life. How to. We didn't have Instagram. Now there's social media there's just so much education out there. You could use it as a tool, or as it can negatively affect you. But I wanted a book that can tell me, okay, like, what do I do with girls? How do I change my oil? How do I, YouTube wasn't a thing. You couldn't just go online and kind of research these things. And I'm sure you could have, but who the hell is that resourceful as a kid? And now that I've been able to live this life, I'm 31 years old. I know I'm 31 years old now, and it doesn't look like it, right? But I've been able to live those experiences. And I wasn't able to find that book because nobody had walked my shoes specifically.
And that's it. Like,
do you know what I mean?
There's so much knowledge out there. There's so many self-help books. If you want to figure out relationships, how many books have you read about relationships, relationship therapy? If you want to start a business, there's so many books out there. But at the end of the day, how you were when you were younger. It's like, even though that information is out there, you want to hear from someone that kind of came up the way you did. And
sure.
And a lot of that is missing. You know?
Or like, it's all the information is out there. It's been out there. Nothing is new is under the sun. Right. But it's not structured in a program that is presented from A to Z. So it takes being an adult and it takes like fucking up and having to live life through however you might live it in order to choose what you think and pick which is valuable to you, right? And now that I feel like I have a voice for people who, especially men, you know what I mean? Like who experience these, I don't know, like these, how would I put it?
Hardships
specifically, specifically due to your own mindset. Do you know what I mean? Like the biggest obstacle is us.
Mental health,
but not just mental health, but lack of knowledge and not knowing where to start.
Mindset, mentality. Yeah.
Right. So nothing new is under the sun, but I'm kind of lost at where the question was.
No, I feel you. I think that's exactly it. Like, to bring in another quote, it's like a fool, or let's start with the beginning. It's a dumb person never learns from their mistakes. A smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from others' mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That I was never wise. That's for me, at least. And there's tons of people out there. People couldn't tell me, because I had authoritarian issues. You couldn't tell me like, hey,
same here.
Like, you know what I mean? And as a kid, you're kind of like, yeah, you don't know what I'm going through. You know, our parents don't know what we're going through.
That's it. Exactly.
But so I had to kind of live through, like, it's like the quote, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. I needed to figure it out for myself. And now that I'm starting to figure things out, and I have a long way to go. I'm nowhere, like, we won't even get there. Do you get what I mean? We don't even need to get there. Like, that's that whole imposter syndrome thing. But I do feel like I've touched base on a lot of topics and learned about a lot of topics that have now made me feel like I'm on the right path enough to be doing a podcast like this.
For sure, man. And you know, like, the young guys that come through the shop, young people in my network, young people in your network, I'm sure you can feel how valuable speaking from your experience could be for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's like, to me, that's a huge reason, a good reason to start up this podcast. Mm-hmm. So actually to kind of expand on that a little further.
Sorry, but before you start that,
yeah.
Why do you want to start this podcast?
For the same thing, man. I think, you know, nowadays I'm the same age. I'm 31, turning 32 this year. And I lived my 20s a certain way, and I'm really starting to think about purpose and, you know, not necessarily of what I have to gain, but my gain is what I am offering and the value that I'm offering to the world. And that's a continual, like, discovery process for me, you know? And, like, I want to sharpen that. I want to define what it is that is my purpose and the value that I'm giving to the world, a purpose much bigger than myself, right? And I feel like, much like you, I have a certain set of experiences. I'm also very, you know, passionate about speaking about what I've learned through my experiences and wanting others not to go through the same mistakes.
Yep.
And hopefully to put them on a path where they could excel so much further. Maybe even, you know, if they don't make the same mistakes that I made, maybe they could be at a much better position at age 31. You know
right.
what I'm saying? And I have a deep desire and passion to promote that and to push that. So that's just everything you're saying. I kind of resonate with to its core. And yeah, man, that's my big why. That's the value I want to add
right
in this podcast.
So it's funny because you might ask, like, why is it necessary to live a life of purpose? And because a life of purpose for me, and what I found out, being such an unhappy individual, when you are not living a life of purpose, I was living a very unfulfilled life. An unfulfilled life, back to the etymology, if you look at the words fulfilled, you have full and you have filled, right? So when you think of what's full and what's filled, if this cup is empty right now. So a life that is an unfulfilling life is almost an empty life, right? An empty life of instant gratification, right? Pleasure, easiness is unfulfilling, especially now in an age of technology. We don't have to work for the shit that we need, right? If you want to go get food, you go to the grocery store. Boom. You want to get up a flight of steps up into whichever floor we are in this high rise, you press a button. I don't got to walk up a flight of steps to get here, right? There's no delayed gratification in today's society. And living an unfulfilled life, I was so lost, right? It's not that I was unhappy. I was grateful. I'm unsatisfied because I'm not maximizing the capacity. There's so much left in this cup that can be filled up. And when you know that you're on a life of purpose, a journey, it doesn't the destination doesn't matter.
Word.
And that's what my recent caption, and when I posted on my Instagram, go like my IG post, right? Is happiness is in the pursuit of, or sorry, it's happiness in the pursuit over the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly.
The man who, back to the whole Chris Williamson quote, it's like the man who loves walking will walk further than the man who loves the destination. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's exactly why I want to do this podcast as well, is because I've been there. I've been without purpose. For some people, God is purpose. For some people, right? And I just want to let people know that there's hope. It's through purpose. It's through suffering.
Facts.
Hard times create strong men. Easy. You get the rest. Yeah.
True, man. Yeah, like you said it. I think for men, mental health is such a taboo topic. It's very tough for men to be vulnerable with their emotions, and oftentimes when men suffer through depression, anxiety, and just they're kind of in a funk, a lot of the messaging in today's day and age is, oh, seek therapy, talk to somebody about it. But is that what men really want? I think a lot of therapeutic applications in men's mental health issues comes with finding purpose in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why Hormozy says the same thing. Like a lot of very successful people and free thinkers. Napoleon Hill is all about being a free thinking individual. Is like therapy. Like it's good if you're lost because that person should be trying to help you find your way. But when you know where you want to go, right? Why do you need what other voice do you need? When you know you're on the right path, when you know you're on the righteous path and you're following the light, then you don't really need somebody else to tell you otherwise. Do you get what I mean?
You know which direction you're going.
You're not lost, right? So some men might need therapy, right? They need somebody to talk to, but I think more so than ever in today's life of instant, not just gratification, but like stuff where you don't have to work for, a lot of people just lack purpose. And I think it's
so let me try to transition here then. I think you as a barber, you saying that holds a lot of weight. And the reason I say that is because let's think of it from a bigger picture. All the identity barbers, all the identity barber shops, and now it's becoming bigger than a barber shop. It's becoming beauty salons, etc. Think about how many thousands of clients come through to the different locations per week, right? And every time a client comes and sits on that chair, you're having a conversation with them. Each barber is having a conversation with the client. The clients, you're getting that live feedback and talking to real people. And oftentimes when you're in that setting, myself included, men are more susceptible to open up. And talk about what's going on in their lives, etc. So if you think about it that way, and you think about the sheer quantity of people that are going through the chairs at Identity, I feel like Identity is a very solid reflection of the voice on the ground level, in a very genuine, unfiltered way. So based off of that and all of the different clients that you have and the conversations that you overhear from your neighboring barbers, what are some common themes of topics that the men are talking about when they come through to sit in that chair?
So I'll give you my honest answer. I have, to be honest, like some of the topics in the shop, as a team leader, right? As a shop owner, one of the things that I noticed when I hired a bunch of the guys at my shop is that, a lot of them were quiet guys. A lot of them were introverts. So I had purposely set up the stations so that the talkers would be with the non-talkers, so that conversation would kind of flow through the room a little bit better. And unfortunately, with the design at the shop and how big the ceilings are like 30 feet high, right? I would say it's unfortunate in the sense because in a smaller barbershop where the traditional shop is all the mirrors are on the walls, barbers actually cut away from the mirror because we use the mirror as a reference for lighting and stuff like that, right? But when the mirrors are on the walls and we're all facing each other in a smaller room, it creates an environment and a culture where people talk more, right? So that's when you get that shop talk. That's when you get like people chirping each other, laughing. The discussions get a little bit spicy, right? At Identity, unfortunately, the ceilings are really high and there's a big island separating us, right? And it's in a very narrow kind of direction. So where we lack in that kind of conversation where everybody can kind of talk to each other, it forces us to engage with our clients one-on-one. So I don't really get a lot of insight in terms of what everybody's talking about on a regular basis, but I definitely try to interact with the guys. And the guys will talk about topics like women, current political stuff, the shit you see on Insider and E! News, like Extra. Like we talk about celebrities, we talk about sports, we just shoot the shit,
Word.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm sure women talk about the same thing, but just maybe just about boys, or just the same thing about current issues and stuff like that. Who knows? Actually, that'd be pretty cool to go to a salon and kind of hear what they talk about.
I'm sure they're gossiping. Maybe that's a little sexist, but
yeah, well, we're gossiping too.
Yeah, of course.
They're probably talking like I've heard that women are saying even more uncensored, unfiltered shit, but. Personally, I don't even really think that there's much of a separation between how humans are humans, right? In terms of like how different we are, I really don't think we are that different, and it's all about individual identity.
True.
No pun
intended.
intended.
I'd love to dive deeper into that, maybe on a different episode.
So conversation, man, it's just like everything that's kind of hot, everything that's currently going on. And we'll be talking about those things, and we'll be trying to get guests on there to talk about the hottest topics and while sticking on the topic of self-development and growth. Right?
Man, speaking of what's hot, like Mississauga is on the come up, I think Mississauga has been for so long, and it still is to a very significant degree, the younger sibling to Toronto, for sure. And the reason I phrased my previous question like that is I feel like Identity has a very strong presence in Mississauga, a little bit in Brampton, a little bit in Oakville. And to me, from the outside and just being part of that barbershop scene, it's like a brewing voice of Mississauga in general. So like when Identity is trying to tell a message to all of your clients, you're telling a message, you're giving a message to Mississauga. And I think that's the size and scale in which Identity is at right now. And so coming back to the city of Mississauga, I want to talk a little bit more about that. How's it been like for you being in Mississauga?
This is home now. Like Mississauga is home now. So for those who don't know, I born and raised in Windsor. I think I mentioned that in the beginning. Born and raised in Windsor, Ontario. If you don't know where that is, it's by Michigan. It's literally like you could swim to Detroit if it wasn't for the current. When the water is frozen, you could literally walk to Detroit. And when I say you could walk to Detroit, those buildings in the back, that's how close Detroit is to Windsor, right? It's closer to us than Toronto is to Mississauga. You could walk across the bridge in like 25 minutes. So Windsor, your question was like, what's my experience been in Mississauga?
Yeah.
Like, and what my thoughts are. So when I first came here, I came here when I was about 16 years old. I honestly thought it was very phony. Do you know what I mean? Well, okay, no, you don't know what I mean, but I thought it
Kind of.
So coming from Windsor, it was different. First of all, the kids here were ahead of us. They were ahead of us in fashion. They were ahead of us in slang. The slang was different. You know, at that time, I graduated high school in 2010, which means like I think I came here around 2008, right? I think my camera just turned off. Let me see. Yep. So I came here in 2008. And I remember being in grade 11, showing up to Mississauga and making friends. And people were saying like, yo, like that's arms, or yo, I'm cheesed. Yeah. Yo, that's haunted. They were using all these words like, yo, that you're so dry. They were using all these words. And I was like, the fuck is that? You're like, I'm over here in Windsor still saying like bro and dog and homie. And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, so Windsor is very like, it's very rugged because it's very blue collar, and it's very almost like I can't explain it. There's not a lot of cookie cutter homes, so it can be very unique. There's a lot of space in Windsor, so coming here, it's very cluttered and very condensed. There's a lot of people, and which means like it's really hard to get a sense of who's who in Mississauga. Where in Windsor, you know who that guy is. You know that so-and-so, don't fuck around with him because his brother is in jail. Or you know who that, like, you know who's hard and you know who's not. You know which toes to step on, and you know whose toes not to step on. Whereas in Mississauga, because everybody talks in a certain way and kind of acts like they're from Toronto, it's like coming from Windsor at first, I was like, you almost don't know who is who. You almost don't know who is like about that life and who isn't. But then you adjust, right? And that was a very, at that time, very, I would say adolescent way of looking at Mississauga, because those are the things that kind of matter when you're trying to find your way in the social hierarchy of a high school. But after this became home, you realize how much opportunity there's here, right? Versus Windsor. Windsor, there's nothing. You can walk through downtown, right? You can do the same thing in Mississauga, but there's just so much shit to do. There's Toronto, there's Brampton, there's all these places, right? More girls, more people, more experiences, clubs, restaurants. So yeah. So to answer your question, like Mississauga's just got so much opportunity, man. Like Windsor is a ghost town. Like anybody who's going to Windsor, you won't really get the best of Windsor unless like it's a uni town, so you're gonna get a little bit of like what London, Guelph is and all that shit. But unless you live there and you kind of know what's going on, you're not gonna get that like intimate experience of like the house parties and you know the nature that exists in the area. But Mississauga, man, this is home now. This is just the land of opportunity. It's the land of the free, America.
Word. Yeah, man. I mean, I was born and raised in Mississauga, and I also had, you know, the opportunity to live outside of Mississauga for a pretty big piece of my life as well. But growing up, like, yeah, man, I think Mississauga, you know, depending on, I feel like in Mississauga, you knew growing up whose toes you shouldn't step on.
Okay, true.
Whose you should.
Yeah.
Or whose you can, right? But then sometimes not knowing, people take risks, and that causes friction. And because of that friction, like, I feel like Mississauga was pretty, you know, like, yo, I was 14 when one of my friends got shot to death.
It's crazy.
The guy who shot him was also a friend.
Damn.
You know, like.
Does Anna know the same people too?
Yeah.
All within the same.
He probably does. Yeah.
Because I like hearing that coming from Windsor, and also it all varies on like because like I'm not in high school, I was not really in that kind of lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? And I knew friends whose brothers were, and those were the people that I kind of looked up to. But I wasn't really about that life. And then I made friends with people over here who kind of showed me what that life is really kind of about. But it's still something that I knew, like I was wise enough to never really dip my feet in, you know?
Word.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's why it's so important to have a voice like ours speaking to the youth. If our audience kind of starts to resonate with the youth, why that's so important, because like just that example I drew, you know, in middle school, we were all punk ass kids, you know, getting into trouble, but like PG trouble.
Right.
You know? But then when that shit went down, this is the beginning of high school. I feel like that set the tone for what high school was going to be like. And high school was a lot of that, a lot of people kind of walking down the wrong path.
Right.
Some people taking advantage of that situation. And what's up? You got to go soon? 5 minutes. Ooh, okay. But yeah, anyways, just to wrap that up, like, I think Mississauga, maybe I'm biased because I'm just speaking from my own point of view, but I'm sure like guys like Annan can attest to it as well. Like, there's a lot of negative influences going around growing up here, and it could get pretty dangerous sometimes too. And I feel like a lot of people don't know. And more than like bragging about what Mississauga is like or what it isn't like, and I can already see the internet like comments being like, Mississauga's soft, with these saga boys don't know shit,
yeah.
I can oversee that, but like beyond all that, what I do know is that there's kids that are going through shit that
they're living that gang life. Like, yo, you hear about it all the time. Like, I think there was just a shooting in Mississauga just the other day, right? Kennedy and something. Somebody sent me that. Brampton, there's shootings all the time. Brampton's pretty bad. I know Brampton's like the butt of the joke here in the GTA with like Six Buzz and all that. But Brampton's fucking bad, man. There's like cars being stolen every day. But that's not the point. The point is like I don't know how bad Windsor is these days, but yeah, you're right. Like,
I'm sure they're right next to Detroit. That culture probably like
bleeds in over.
Yeah, for sure. And so like all that to say, to juxtapose that with what you said about Mississauga being a land of opportunity, which it is.
Right.
The Toronto, like I said in the beginning, Mississauga is on its come up, and
right.
because those two things coincide with each other, a lot of kids, having a tough decision to make in terms of what path to follow, and it having so much opportunity. It's like that's where we come in terms of value.
Right. True. Sounds a little corny.
True. Yeah, maybe.
We'll cut it out.
All right.
No. I'm just playing. We'll watch it.
Yeah, we'll watch it. Shit. Fuck.
There's opportunity everywhere, man. That's the other thing too. When it comes to like self-development and the mindset, man, it doesn't matter where you're from. Get the fuck out of where you're from if you need to make it. Surround yourself around people, because even butterflies know not to associate with caterpillars, right? It's all about, and that's what the barbershop told me. The barbershop taught me that when you surround yourself around hustlers and people who are money motivated and business motivated, I didn't have that, right?
Facts.
And I don't even know if I would find that in Windsor, but at least there are people out here by the numbers that have opportunity, because there's Toronto right there. You know what I mean? There's just power in numbers, right? Power of proximity, right?
Right.
So I know Fio's got to go and wrap it up. I don't know if there's any other questions that you want to.
Yeah, I mean, let me just look here. I guess one thing I wanted to ask was part of growing up here, growing up anywhere,
right,
is it's harder to funnel down to our issues locally because of social media, because of the internet.
Right.
And it feels like it's much more of a global community now, and everything we see on our phones is wreaking havoc, and there's so many global issues that are part of our lives too. I know you're pretty vocal about the Palestinian and Israel conflict, and gender identity wars, and the Russian-Ukraine, and like there's just so much going on. It feels like there's constant chaos all the time lately. I just want to know from your point of view, as someone who's very passionate about a lot of things and very knowledgeable on a lot of things, how have you been able to navigate them, keep your head above water, and
honestly, like a lot of the times I find myself just like asking myself, maybe like Annan is a perfect example of this, man. He got out of here because it just wasn't his circle of influence, right? Like he's just so focused that he's like looking through the telescope and he's got the Peaky Blinders on. He doesn't watch the news. He doesn't use social media. He doesn't do none of that. And the world is a much better place because ignorance is bliss, right? But there's so much suffering going on in the world where like it would be doing the people a disservice to not speak up, because like I said, I was so anti-authoritarian back in the day, And my mom taught me to speak up for myself, speak up for people who can't. And it's just about what's right and what's wrong. And sometimes through this social media and like the algorithms and echo chambers and stuff like that, you are only going to be fed your own bias. And I'm aware of the psychological phenomenons of bias, opinions and stuff like that, right? We choose who we vote for because we've already made that decision. We don't even need to listen to their points that are highlighted in debate, like electoral debates and stuff like that, right? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be the governor. I'm fucking voting for that guy. That's Terminator. Even though I have no idea what the hell he's trying to fucking do. I don't know what bills he's trying to pass or whose side he's on or nothing like that, right? So when it comes to topics about that, like, I'm done. I'm 31 years old, man. I'm done not speaking up. I'm done being afraid. I'm done being scared, man, because like I've told myself this for such a long time during COVID and shit like that, because you're afraid of being wrong. Fuck being afraid of wrong. When I was 18, I was releasing music, rap videos that are so cringe. You can go back and look back, but I don't care about failure because I don't care about who I might offend, because I should be focused on who I might inspire. And you know what? I'm not trying to I'm not trying to be polarized. I'm not trying to hate on other people, because I have an open mind enough to have discussions about gender identity. And two, I'm cool with being up here and talking about why Israel think they have a right to occupy Palestine. I'm cool with being here as to why some people in the LGBT community think it's okay to teach kids to eliminate gender constructs, right? I want to know. And I can see things through those perspectives because, like, I believe in all of the prophets. I believe in all of the religious leaders. I think there's truth in the fiction and fiction in the truth, right?
Word. Yo, that's why I fuck with you, man. Like, every time we have a conversation, you're very knowledgeable and you're passionate, but I know you're still curious. You're always, like, open to learn.
Because I don't know shit, but all I know is what's right and wrong. I know that it's wrong for fucking, like, 30,000 kids to be fucking murked. I see them like rag dolls ripped open, right? I see this shit, right? I know it's wrong for Hamas to go fly over the wall and kill a bunch of people at a festival, right? I know it's wrong for politicians to lobby and like pay for weapons and give it to a country and then give aid the next day. Do you know what I mean? I know it's wrong for people to hate on gays, and I know it's wrong for people to fucking to oppress a group of people that feel like they don't even fit in their own body. Right, but I also know it's wrong for males to dress and swim and compete with little girls who work their whole life, and I know it's wrong to push on sexual ideas that have nothing to do with reproduction and education. Do you get what I mean? And there's no diplomacy in today, and that's why I want this podcast, because there's no middle ground anymore. Right? There's no respective opinion. It's fuck you. This is my opinion.
It's purely divisive. Nobody trying to unify.
Exactly.
And when I talk to you, I know that at the core, it's like you have a deep love for humanity. You're trying to unify people.
It's both. Sometimes I'm like, yo, I have a deep love for people, and sometimes like, yo,
you're only human, right?
Everybody can go fuck themselves, man. I'm just out here trying to do my thing and and worry about my people. But at the same time, I'm tired of just being silenced. There's a voice, and that's what could be my talent that's being pushed down. Do you know what I mean? And
most certainly is, man. It most certainly is. That's what I get. So okay, let's wrap this up. I mean, I love all of that, and I'm sure if the audience is tuning in, there's just so much to talk about there, and that passion is gonna really shine through. And I invite everybody to join that conversation with us. But from your end, man, like, if you were to talk to the audience right now, and who do you want to tune in? Who do you think would get the most value of tuning in? And what's the last message you want to leave with them before we sign off?
What's that guy say? Sniper out on all digital platforms right now. That guy, sniper out now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's from that one fucking that video. Fuck, man. Like, people in Mississauga feel the same way. People who are afraid to fucking speak up. People who feel. Bro, there's so many people in my chair that just don't want to say these things because they're afraid of offending gays. They're afraid of offending Israel's and Palestine's and stepping on the wrong foot. It will cause hate. Like, but yo, I'm a fighter. It's like, yo, fucking pull up at my gym. There's a ton of people out there that will also ride out for me, right? And I'm not trying to invite that kind of fucking shit.
Pull up and have a
pull up on me
knowledgeable debate on these certain topics.
For real, like, yo, like I actually cut people of so many diverse, like, And it's sad because I don't even feel like I can have these conversations, you know? I don't even feel like, I can chirp my boys, but like, why can't I chirp the people that I cut every day because they are like sensitive to the things that I say, you know what I mean? The whole freedom of speech and stuff like that. So I want to talk to people the people that I want to tune into is people who understand the value of freedom of speech and that understand the value of expressing ideas in order to grow and sharing information in order to grow and not limit ourselves. So people who are feel stuck, feel trapped, feel frustrated, right? People who don't know how to navigate through finances, political opinions, through women, through self-esteem and therapeutic issues and ego and all that shit. Like, that's who I want to tune in.
And ultimately, the thing that unites all of them and us is the desire to become better. Right?
Absolutely.
Personal development.
Fuck yeah.
I fuck with it.
Cool. First episode.
Cool.
Hands are sweaty, palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy.
Mom spaghetti.
Yeah. I would have loved to ask you a bunch of questions too, man.
We'll get it next time, man.
Yeah, episode 2.
More episodes to come.
More episodes to come.
You already know.
All right, brother.
Peace.